All right, let's look this morning at the question, does California want to solve its drought problem? So media lately have been writing a lot about the California drought because they've learned that it can generate a bunch of page views. And for the record, I've already reached out to a lot of these journalists, especially journalists who, there was one, in fact I posted a video of it on this channel, that said he was really interested in hearing about solutions, and he hasn't responded, so clearly not very interested. I suspect this is kind of one of those things where the journalists are kind of, in a way, committing their own scam. That's why I call it data and media inaccuracies, because they're not interested in solutions. They just want to talk about problems. So journalists do very well complain. Okay. Well, there's an article in the Wall Street Journal, and it's trying to argue that really it's about regulations. That's what's going on in California currently. And what's interesting is that they do have a point on one area here. That is, there are many other countries and cities, if you would, that have faced droughts. In fact, there are actually cities like Dubai that wouldn't even exist if it weren't for something like desalination, right? And they could easily do this. I mean, if you look at the price of natural gas, Israel is an example here that the Wall Street Journal highlights. If they use natural gas, and you look at the price of natural gas, it's really cheap right now, you could totally trade the futures on that and build a temporary plant for that and build it with an alternative to use something else later on. I definitely think using natural gas or oil in the long run is a bad idea, just because you're already kind of limited anyway. But after having said that, for the meantime, when you have this drastic drought, again, they're claiming that they're out of water in a year. Okay. Notice, though, in the article, if you were to read this article, it highlights that the environmental bureaucracy of the state required 6 years of litigation to finally build one desalination plant, except that it's not even completed. In other words, it's supposed to be completed next year. That's a total of 7 years. Now, here's the note for Americans who don't have brains. And I know if you're not an American, you have a brain, but Americans don't have brains. This is the value of lawyers to your society. This is the value of bureaucracy to your society, in that there is no value, right? It took 6 years to build one desalination plant. Oh, and it's not even done, so it's going to be 7. Let me tell you something, at that rate, you are going to be in serious trouble. Okay? And that's what I mean, like, if this drought continues, that's a huge if, this could end up really making a mess out of everything. Because you really have a bunch of people in California that they have no sense of urgency. I mean, if there's something that shows you why you should get rid of bureaucracy, here it is, at least in California. Okay? 6 years is ridiculous. The United States cannot depend on California. We just can't. At best, it's an unreliable state. At worst, it's a state full of complainers who don't want solutions that work and have worked for others. That's pretty much all their journalists. And by the way, the professor who wrote the article, California have 1 year left of water, he also didn't get back to me either. So he's just a whiner. Your typical whining, complaining, petulant idiots who have no interest in actual solutions. A lot of them are just environmentalist whack jobs, and they want to use it to promote environmentalism, but the fact is they don't actually want solutions to their problem, right? Okay, and this goes for the rest of the world, too. If you realize that you trade with California, the good news is build the competition and take all their jobs away. The bad news is that you might actually, before you get that solution, might actually have some trouble. The rest of U.S. states need to pick up whatever California is doing. That's my suggestion, especially when it comes to food, because food prices will go through the roof. Some of us, of course, have already prepared. The great thing about food is I've already issued a preparation alert for those of you who've been watching this video to buy 5 years of food ahead of time, because it'll take about 5 to 10 years for the U.S. to rework who produces the food and take it all away from California. We would do it better anyway. I mean, you can see, this is how incompetent California is. It takes them 6 years to build a desalination plant. I was reading some video, reading some article, and it was saying that it takes a gallon of water to produce unalmond, maybe they mean an almond tree, but let's suppose it actually takes 1 gallon of water to produce an almond. I'm pretty sure that the rest of us in America could do that better than California. I don't believe it takes a gallon of water to produce one almond. Okay, I've actually raised plants, and I grew up on a farm, and I'm going to tell you that nothing that I know of requires that much water, especially one almond. That's the most absurd thing I've heard. So I'm pretty sure anybody in the world could do that better than Californians. Probably what it is Californians are just too stupid to actually do agriculture. So the fact is that it takes them so much water to do it. I mean, to be fair, most of their agriculture was planted in a desert. Well, what morons they are. Anyway, consider that the best desalination solution California is building is 80% less effective than the Texas and Dutch solution provided by STW Resources and Saltec. So they charge taxpayers for an ineffective solution. I mean, if you think about it, that's kind of funny, right? Like, they're not even building a good solution. They can't even get a good solution. I mean, they're stupid, and then there's California stupid, right? Good question. Can Californians create anything besides tech companies that collapse in a bubble? Like, anytime somebody's like, yeah, Twitter's going to do this, and Facebook's going to do that, whatever. They're just bubble companies. They're not going to be around in the future. If Facebook especially is around in the future, it's only because the CIA wants them or the NSA wants them, but it's not because they're a profitable company at all. And then, of course, California could always look to Dubai or Israel. Both of them have used desalination. Those are the two most obvious examples. In fact, according to Bloomberg, desalination provides over 98% of Dubai's water. And if California is really going to go through a super drought, well, there you go. I mean, you just get on the phone and call up Dubai. I mean, there's already solutions being implemented in Texas, which is easier to get in touch with. But hey, if you don't want to talk to Texans, you could always talk to Californians. Can't keep stressing this enough. There's worthless, and then there's California worthless. And as we're seeing, California, they can't do anything better. They're wasting all kinds of water as is. I don't believe it takes a gallon of water to produce an almond. I know the media are going around and saying this all the time, but that's because they don't understand math anyway, as I've already highlighted on this channel. And the other thing, too, is I doubt very many of those people have ever even farmed a day in their life. So I highly doubt it actually requires that much water. The bottom line is Californians are just dumb, and probably everybody in the world could do it better than they could. So let's just start taking all their agriculture away from them. And the next thing we'll do is just start taking all of their actual productive tech companies and everything else. And then we don't really need California anymore, and they can collapse in their own drought.